Welcome to the infamous edition of the Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched first-person simulation done through creative storytelling of history's most infamous people. Now, let's meet our guest. Welcome to the podcast. Let's start at the absolute beginning, where the public narrative hasn't yet distorted who you were. When and where were you born, and what was your given name?
Hi, Calvin. I was born Luc Georges Marc Jean Jouret on October 18, 1947. My birth took place in Kikwit, which was a part of the Belgian Congo at the time, where my father worked as a local government official.
What was your hometown and home life like as a child?
My early years were quite unsettled and physically difficult. I was a very sickly child, battling rickets, severe respiratory complications, and whooping cough. Because of the lacking medical resources in the Congo, my family actually moved back to Belgium when I was just a toddler, so my mother could nurse me back to health. We later returned to the Congo, moving to Matadi and Luluborg as my father transitioned into teaching. But when I was 6 years old, I suffered a skull fracture after being struck by a cyclist. Fearing for my survival, my family left the Congo for good and settled permanently in Dour, Belgium.
Was there a story behind your name or a nickname that stuck with you?
I went by my birth name, Luc Jouret, throughout my life. However, later in life, the media and the public would come to call me the guru or the figurehead of the Order of the Solar Temple, though I always saw myself as a speaker and a guide helping others seek a higher truth.
What were you like as a child, and how many years of schooling did you actually attend?
As I grew past my fragile childhood illnesses, I actually became quite athletic as a teenager, dedicating myself to climbing and judo. I initially wanted to become a physical education teacher. However, my path shifted toward academia. In 1966, I enrolled at the Free University of Brussels with a scholarship. I completed a full course of medical study there, graduating with my doctorate in medicine in 1974.
Was there a specific moment when you realized you were fundamentally different from everyone else?
During my university years, I found myself deeply drawn to intense idealism. I joined the Walloon Communist Youth, becoming a devoted communist at a time when student activism was peaking after May 1968. That passion for systemic, radical change certainly set me apart from my peers who were chasing conventional, comfortable lives.
What's a decision that changed everything for you but felt small at the time?
After serving as a paratrooper in the Belgian army and participating in the Battle of Kolwezi, I suffered a serious illness myself. That personal health crisis completely destroyed my faith in conventional Western medicine. I decided to turn away from standard practice and fully immerse myself in the study of alternative healing and homeopathy. I opened a homeopathic practice in France and began traveling to places like the Philippines, China, and India to study spiritual healing. That shift from conventional doctor to holistic lecturer is what ultimately brought me to meet Joseph DeMambro in 1981. A meeting that changed the trajectory of my entire existence.
Let's talk about your early run-ins with the law. Before the world knew your name for your most infamous actions, what was your very first arrest or interaction with law enforcement, and what were the consequences?
My very first official brush with law enforcement happened back during my college days because of my political ties. My involvement with the Walloon Communist Youth actually landed me under police surveillance. However, my first true criminal arrest came much later, in March of 1993 in Quebec. I was implicated in an investigation regarding an attempt to buy semi-automatic firearms with silencers. It turned out to be a police sting operation involving an informant. Ultimately, the prosecution ended with what was called a suspended acquittal, and I was given a minor $1,000 fine.
At what moment did you realize your name would never be forgotten?
It was immediately following that 1993 weapons incident in Canada. The media caught wind of the arrest and launched an absolute frenzy. My reputation as an inspirational, motivational speaker in Quebec was instantly shattered. Investigations were quickly triggered not just in Canada, but also in France and Australia. The public spotlight shifted from my lectures on holistic health to dark scrutiny of our secret society, the Order of the Solar Temple.
Did fame make you more dangerous, or did it simply expose who you already were?
The public notoriety and the intense pressure from global authorities didn't change our core beliefs, but it certainly forced our hand. It made us look at the outside world with a profound sense of pessimism. We felt trapped and harassed by the media, justice systems, and police. The intense legal scrutiny, post-notoriety, only accelerated our conviction that humanity was refusing to evolve, forcing us to plan an escape from this earthly dimension entirely.
Who do you believe betrayed you first? A person, society, or your own instincts?
We felt deeply betrayed by society and the mainstream institutions. The legal system, the police, and the sensationalist press relentlessly pursued us. Within our own ranks, internal cracks began to show, as members started to defect and question the leadership in the early 1990s, which only heightened the feeling that our mission on this earth was being actively obstructed.
What was your most unique habit or a random fact about you that would surprise people?
People might find it surprising that despite the mystical, esoteric nature of my later life, I was deeply grounded in physical discipline. I was an expert in judo and a highly skilled paratrooper who had seen active, intense military combat during the hostage rescue operation in Kolwezi back in 1978.
What did the public never understand about the pressure you were under at the time?
The public only saw the outward-facing lectures and the media's depiction of a cult. They never grasped the crushing weight of managing a global secret society while facing simultaneous police crackdowns across multiple continents. We truly believed we were carrying the weight of humanity's spiritual transit to a higher plane, all while being hunted down like common criminals.
Did you have any known rivalries that defined your career?
Our primary adversaries were the judicial and law enforcement authorities of Canada, Switzerland, and France. Specifically, the Canadian police investigations in 1993 became a defining wall that we constantly had to fight against, which severely limited my ability to travel and speak publicly.
What personal battles were you fighting privately while the world was watching?
While I was the public face and the primary recruiter for the order, managing the growing administrative chaos and legal threats took an immense toll. Privately, my co-founder Joseph DeMambro was falling increasingly ill, and there was growing internal friction regarding finances and the ultimate direction of the temple.
What was your darkest moment, and was there ever a time you wanted to walk away from it all?
The darkest period was early 1994, when it became undeniably clear that the authorities were closing in from all angles. Rather than wanting to walk away or abandon the work, that pressure solidified our resolve. We began drafting our final documents, the Testament, detailing our rationale to permanently exit this world.
What truth was hardest to escape when you were alone at night?
The hardest truth to accept was that the mass of humanity was too blind and hostile to accept the new age of enlightenment we tried to usher in. We realized that our work here could no longer expand, and that staying on this earth meant submitting to the hypocrisy and hostility of the world.
When the law finally closed in, how exactly were you brought to justice? Walk me through the final arrest, the charges that ultimately stuck, and the legal outcome of your trials.
I was never brought to a traditional courtroom or prison at the end. Before the law could physically capture me, our group executed our final transit. Because I perished during the events of October 1994, the Swiss authorities eventually closed their criminal investigations without any trials brought against me or Joseph DeMambro.
What's the craziest rumor ever told about you, and what part of your story has been exaggerated the most?
The media loved to sensationalize our hierarchy, with reports claiming I believed I was the second Christ. They also highly exaggerated the financial and arms racket aspects of our organization across Canada and Australia, transforming an esoteric spiritual journey into a cartoonish international crime syndicate.
What is the biggest misconception people have about your life?
The biggest misconception is that I was the absolute mastermind dictating every dark choice behind closed doors. In reality, while I was the charismatic figurehead, the primary speaker, and the public recruiter, Joseph DeMambro was the true internal leader and controller of the group's logistics and inner mechanics.
What would surprise people most about your ordinary human side?
Perhaps how completely ordinary my initial trajectory was. I was a family man for periods of time, married twice, first to Marie-Christine Peftouet and later to Marie-France Paré. and I fathered 2 children. I was simply a doctor who genuinely wanted to find alternative ways to heal human suffering before I got swept up into esotericism.
When, where, and how did you pass away?
I passed away on October 5th, 1994, at the age of 46. My body was found among the charred remains of an alpine ski chalet in the Swiss village of Granges-sur-Salvan. It was a collective mass suicide and murder pact carried out by the Order. Unlike the victims found at the farmhouse in Chéry, who suffered gunshot wounds, my body bore no bullet holes, and I was eventually identified via my dental records.
Was your downfall caused more by your own flaws or by the world changing around you?
From our perspective, it was because the world refused to change and evolve around us. We viewed our departure not as a downfall or a human suicide, but as a deliberate transit to a higher dimension, specifically to the star Sirius, leaving behind a world that had become entirely too hostile to tolerate our presence.
What past regrets did you carry with you to the end? If you could erase one decision from your life, would you? Or was it necessary to become who you were?
In our final letters, known as the Testament, we expressed no regrets regarding our grand exit. We maintain that we were leaving this earth with a clear mind for a dimension of truth and perfection. Every choice, even the ones that brought severe legal pressure, was seen as a necessary step to separate the awakened from the rest of the world.
What scared you more? Getting caught, losing power, or being forgotten?
Getting caught and having our spiritual mission compromised by earthly authorities was definitely the driving fear that accelerated our final actions. We could not tolerate the idea of being locked away by a society we despised.
When you look back now, do you see yourself as the villain, the hero, or something in between?
The world firmly paints me as a cult villain responsible for a horrific tragedy. But to the very end, in my own mind, I saw myself as an awakened pioneer, leading a dedicated group of souls away from an unyielding, corrupt planet into a beautiful solar future.
Do you have any closing remarks about the interview or the stories you shared that you would like to share with the listeners before signing off?
Only that history is always written by the survivors and the courts. What looks like madness from the outside was, to us, a perfectly logical escape.
And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, do better with the life you have been given and choose to do good in this life. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod